Welcome back to Rides and Drives Team Radio. We just spent the weekend at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway where we watched qualifying for the 110th running of the Indianapolis 500. Kaz and I both spent a lot of time at the track on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And even though there wasn't a lot to do on Saturday, we did get some pretty interesting insights there as well. I think let's just start by talking about the weekend overall and what it's like to be there as a journalist and as a fan for qualifying for people who may have never been to the track for that event.
Yeah. Okay. So this is my first Indy 500 in person. Never made it to this race. It's obviously been on my bucket list for a very long time. I feel so deeply, I think the only word I have is blessed that my first experience was with that silver media badge. Being able to go everywhere to talk to so many people was just an absolutely incredible thing. I might be like, there was my wedding. I really liked when my nephew was born, and then maybe this. I don't know. It's pretty unbelievable to be there and to get so much access. So I really think that the best part about being there this weekend, and I would say even for a fan with general admission tickets, is just being able to talk to everybody who has so many memories at this great place and to whom this place means as much to as it does to us.
Yeah, since this is your first time there, tell me about your first time going through the tunnel and what that was like.
Well, I have been to the Speedway, so I've
Right.
gone through the tunnel before, but obviously not with race day atmosphere. Now, the interesting thing, when you enter as a journalist, you go in before general admission gates open. So there's kind of that like calm before the storm feeling in the air. We know that the rush is going to happen soon. The staff is running around and preparing. You can smell food stands starting to cook up, but there aren't any lines. We park in the media parking lot, walk over to our little golf cart shuttle, and just get carted around under the tunnel. And as you kind of come through, this is so silly. I got genuinely emotional. I did not cry, but did I feel a little misty? Yes, it was so silly. But the feeling of importance of this event is just palpable. The
Yeah.
you can breathe it in.
Yeah, and you get that when you start talking to fans.
Hmm.
Certainly, the people who've been coming to this race for 50, 60, 70. There are people who've been to this race. I think they had a picture of a guy who is 100 years old at the track who's been to 80 Indy 500s. So
Wow.
this means a lot to some individuals. And then you start talking to people on the teams, right? You talk to the drivers, you talk to the engineers, and what it means for those teams to participate and be and have a chance to win. I think Catherine Legg talked about how much it meant to her to be back in the 500, and
Yeah.
Rossi talked about how much it means to him now that he's been here for 10 years. So it's so great. And as a fan, qualifying weekend is interesting because you can buy a general admission ticket and still get into some grandstands, right?
Yeah.
So, you can sit outside of turn four on qualifying day and watch the cars come out of turn three into turn four and run down the front straight. So it's actually a really good opportunity for fans to see some cars going fast, to participate in an important part of the Indy 500 experience, and not break the bank, right? If you want to
Yeah.
bring a couple of kids and get there, and that's the other thing I think is great about this weekend is the accessibility of the facility and the drivers,
Yeah.
right? We saw Santino walking through the paddock Not even through the paddock. He walked out of the the garage area into the general admission area. It was in between where the media center was and the pagoda.
Yeah,
And
really high traffic general
yeah,
admission
high
area.
traffic area. And he's just walking through there in his racing suit, stopping, talking to fans. There was no media person with him, no team people trying to keep him separated. He was just there interacting with fans, and they were, taking selfies with him, having him sign autographs. Uh,
And
that's
look, we saw that for
unbelievable.
Santino. It would be faster to list the drivers I didn't see have a moment like that
Right.
than it would be to list the ones who did. So they really are out there talking to you. Um, it, I know my husband was he attended as a fan with a GA ticket all by himself. He had a wonderful day. He said the feeling of it's also his first Indy 500. The feeling of sitting in those grandstands and watching that first car drive by Scott Dixon just completely blew him away. Um, I he he was crossing his fingers he would run into Scott McLaughlin, and unfortunately he didn't. But he still saw. I think his final count was five or six different drivers just walking around in front of him, taking selfies with fans. It's really an easy place to do that. And hey, guess what? If Harvey and I stop them and identify ourselves as media, they're usually pretty cool about answering a quick question, even if they can't. This was so wild. We ran into Nolan Siegel in the garages and, just, hey, quick, Nolan, do you have a second for a question? He said, oh, no, not right now. Sorry, guys. And he walks away. And then he turns back and he goes, really, later, though, I am so sorry. It,
Yeah.
he
It
has
was,
no obligation the first interaction was totally fine. He was very polite and he has no obligation to answer a question outside of the sanctioned media times.
right.
So the fact that he was so genuinely apologetic about not being able to talk to us just kind of blew me away.
Yeah, so I think the net result of this experience is if you're an IndyCar fan or you're Indy curious and you've never been to an event, never been to the 500, come to qualifying weekend. Parking's easy,
Parking was easy.
free.
Nick got free parking
Right. There's free
at the
parking for
track.
fans. So, you can search out those lots. You can park for free. You
He
can
showed
get
up
it.
late too. It's not
Yeah.
like he showed up at 8 a.m. to get a free spot. He showed up
Right.
at
He
like
was there.
11.
Yeah. And qualifying started at noon.
Hmm.
So, get a GA ticket, pack a cooler with sandwiches
Because you
and
can bring
beverages.
in food and drink. You
Could-
can bring in beer.
Yeah. So pack a cooler with what you want, walk in, find a place to watch, the qualifying from, and you can do that from general admission areas on the lawn inside the track. You can find a place in the grandstand, and it'll be a great day, and you'll see phenomenal, IndyCar action. So highly recommended.
Yeah.
Um,
The other
yeah,
thing too is that while it does feel crowded and there are a lot of people there and there's a lot of energy, there's still plenty of, on race day,
yeah,
there are going to be 400,000 people there. It's going to feel packed. It's going to feel very condensed. And I'm excited for that atmosphere as well. But if you do want to be able to move around a little bit more freely, scope out. Nick watched qualifying from three different spots yesterday. He moved between them and never had a problem finding a seat at the new spot he wanted to go to. We luckily we're in the media center and we were planning on bringing you guys kind of a closer look at with some video of what it looks like to be media at the 500 next weekend, but they are very nice to us. They feed us. If we hadn't and we had to wait in the concessions lines, they're not that long.
right.
I did at one point buy some Red Bulls and I think I waited behind two people. So really, really
Yeah.
nice and easy to move through. Your day is only what you want it to be. You don't have to deal with a bunch of the admin stuff. Nick said bathroom lines were pretty quick, although he did say the GA bathrooms were a little dicey. It was a trough scenario, he told me. So I was very glad for the media center bathroom at that point.
Yeah. I,
Maybe one of the biggest unsung perks of being media at this event is that you get the private bathroom that is cleaned regularly and always stocked
in the media
in
tower.
the
Right.
media tower.
Great. So let's talk about the actual qualifying then. I know yesterday we did a quick wrap up and talked about the top three. And if anyone missed that, go ahead and listen to it. It's just 10 minutes long, but we're generally genuinely excited about the podium. I think obviously, Alex Palou pulling out that monster lap monster final lap
Stint, yeah.
was
I
crazy.
just want to say, by the way, Harvey and I both keep doing this. We keep saying podium instead of front row, and it's because qualifying
Yeah,
feels like a race there.
that's true. Yeah.
You know,
Well,
you
Alex
finish the
talked about
weekend
that.
and yeah, you
He
finish
said
the weekend and it feels like a race.
yeah, he said we treat this like a race. And from a point standpoint, it almost is. I mean, 12 points for pole position is
That's a lot of points
yeah.
for a position for a qualifying.
Yeah.
And it really does put some pressure on Kyle.
Yeah.
Um,
So Alex being
But yeah,
there,
if we
yeah.
say podium instead of front row, that's it's because for us it felt like we just attended a race and we're
Yeah.
slipping, not because
He,
we don't know that it's, you know.
and also because I didn't get home until 1 o'clock last night. So
Oh yeah, there's that.
so let's talk about, I mean, just generally, I just want to go through this real quick. I think
Yeah, let's
Alex,
run through.
but I want to talk about the front row once just for a minute. I think, it was kind of a surprise to see Alex bump that far up from where he had run in the 33 car
Yeah.
qualifying. I think Rossi being in the front row was super meaningful to him, and it's a great story. And
Hmm.
then David Malukas. I mean, from where he was 2 years ago in 2024 without a seat, wondering whether he'd blown his chance, to now being, let's face it, at this point in time, he's the number one Penske driver,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
To go from
crazy.
being openly emotional, watching the race, thinking I'm never going to get to win this race. That's been my dream. You know, if you're a race car driver who, especially one who grew up in the United States, you definitely dream of winning the Indy 500 from a very young age.
Yeah.
So for him to go from that to he has a very real chance this year.
Yeah.
And I kind of what, you know, he was supposed to be in that McLaren, which is still a good ride, don't get me wrong, but it's
Yeah.
not the Penske this year. I wonder how he feels about that wrist injury now. You know, I wonder if
Yeah.
looking back, he sees that as this moment in time where
The best thing
everything,
that ever
yeah,
happened to me. Yeah.
a true blessing in disguise. So
Yeah. So
great story for David.
great stories on the front row. Then we look, start going down the order a little bit. Felix Rosenquist, who looked like he had the strongest car all week, right?
Yeah. So from Fast Friday, when they turned the boost on, he was looking a little slow early in practice, but late in practice, they had made some adjustments and he came out and put up the fastest time of the day, fastest speed of the day. When we talked to him at the press conference after, he kind of told us that, yeah, they figured some stuff out and he feels really good about that run, ready to go into qualifying. Um, Looked incredible in the open session, looked untouchable in the fast 12. And look, I'm not surprised that a guy like Alex Palou is able to close that gap and bring his speed up
Right.
to where Rosenquist was, but I was surprised to see Rosenquist lose some speed in the Fast Six. So, you know,
Yeah.
we didn't get a chance to talk to him after. I'm curious to know what happened on that final run.
Yeah. Did they tweak something? Did they not have, what was up? Maybe they used, nah, they wouldn't have used tires, but
No, in the
anyway,
Fast Six.
yeah, I don't know what,
Maybe it was just
what
the
went,
end of a very long day. And
yeah.
I can tell you for me, by the time Felix was doing his run, I was pretty exhausted. And the drivers are doing something more physically challenging than what I was doing. So,
Yeah. The interesting thing is Alex, every time he ran, right, from 33 to fast 12 to fast six, his speed increased. For Rosenquist, his speed decreased every time. So,
I'm not surprised that Alex was able to increase his time, his
yeah,
speed, from the first session to the fast 12. In particular, his running position was bad. It was that was the hottest track of the day.
Right.
It was so
So,
windy.
yeah, there wasn't a driver who didn't come off the track and talk about how hard it was to drive yesterday.
Scott
And
McLaughlin said in 6 years of running the 500, that was the most physically challenging qualifying run he'd ever done.
yeah, and if you think about when you're driving down the freeway and you pass a truck, right? And it buffets you like that. Well,
Hmm.
that's what those guys feel at 230 miles an hour coming out of turn two and all of a sudden hitting a wind gust
Not
or,
comfortable.
no. And
Not comfortable.
the fact that there were no crashes yesterday, um, unbelievable. Yeah.
I before the Fast Six, I almost said to you, and you might remember, I said I'll say it after the session.
Yeah.
We no accidents. I had my husband Nick take a look at it. He let me know that this has happened before, and it has actually happened recently. It
Yeah.
was I don't remember the exact year, but it was within the last 10 years that they made it through qualifiers without any incidents and then had one at the first practice on Monday. So, look, still a lot of racing to go before this becomes a historic Indy
Well,
500.
let's hope so
Yeah.
because, no, I don't know anybody who sits there hoping for crashes.
No, and
So,
in particular in qualifiers where
yeah,
or practices where it's not, sometimes you like the bump and grind in the race and a little bit
right.
of touching that causes some damage is fine. Um,
On a road
but
course, not on the Indy
yeah,
500.
I don't want to see somebody bin a car in an open practice and then be super wrong-footed all weekend when I was really excited to see them run
Right.
at their best.
Yeah. And then on the second row, we've got Ferrucci and Award. And Ferrucci, a surprise, and Pato kind of where he's been all season, right?
I know. He was
I,
he was disappointed after each and every run. He wasn't happy when we talked to him after the first session, although he did feel confident that if he did make the Fast 12, he'd be able to make some improvements. After the Fast 12 run, he swore on live TV. He made
yeah.
Will Buxton apologize.
Yeah, that
Um,
was
he was not happy. So
yeah.
I I don't know what's going on over there. It seems like they're not giving him what he needs to be able to put in Pato performances. And I know that this track in particular is so important to him.
Yeah, and
So,
it's not just Pato, right?
no, none of the McLarens are really anywhere to be found. Christian Lundgaard starting at 18th and Nolan Siegel at 20th. That's not where McLaren should be running by any means.
Yeah. Zach Brown's not going to be happy. So,
No, he is not. And then yeah, Santino, what a great story, especially given that going into qualifying, he said he didn't know that he had the kind of car he would need to be able to qualify toward the front. Um, he put
yeah,
in, yeah, he put in a couple of really, really great performances and seemed really happy whenever we got a chance to see him after. So
right.
really good for Santino, and he's great here. Now, this is a really good moment for us to cut in and talk
Yeah.
about the breaking news.
Yeah,
Um,
his teammate.
his teammate who they have a great relationship. We know Santino's great here. It's really clear that Santino probably gave Kaio a lot of great advice. Kaio making the Fast 12 was a massive surprise. We're all thrilled for him. I was unfortunately on a bathroom break when he came through the line of journalists after he
We
came
didn't get
off.
to talk to him. Yeah.
But you saw him and spoke with him a
Yeah.
little bit. I'm sure he was just glowing.
Yeah, super excited. And then we wake up this morning to find out his time has been erased,
Disallowed along with Jack
disallowed.
Harvey's.
So,
It's
yeah.
just strange. And
I
and for
mean,
Jack Harvey, who had a disappointing first run at qualifiers, sure, it's definitely never good when you're moved back, but it's not the heartbreak that it is for Kaio, who qualified 10th. He
right.
he not only made the Fast 12, he wasn't last in the Fast 12. He didn't make the Fast Six, but it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. That was already an incredible performance from him and a great starting position. And I love seeing teams work well together. So
Yeah.
knowing that he probably got a lot of that advice that put him there from his teammate was such a great story. And now he's starting at the very back.
Right. Right,
It's
right,
just and it's especially heartbreaking for him after the Indy GP, where again he put in a great qualifying performance, was starting high up, and then gets scooped up in an incident early on and knocked to the back. I just he's doing the work he needs to do to put himself in the right position, and something else keeps plucking it away from him. And that's like the gods of racing, right? That's how
right.
this works. But
Pay your
man, he's
dues.
he's just a kid. Give him
Yeah.
something nice.
Yeah. So that was too bad, but then what going through that second row again, you are um sorry, yeah, we've got 4, 5, 6, Felix Santino, and Pato. I'm sorry, I got confused because of the movement of stuff with the disqualification. But then you go to row three and you look at Kiffin, Connor, and Scott, right?
Yeah. I think Kiffin and Connor have to be happy, although I know Connor was hoping to make the Fast Six.
Yeah.
Um, for Kiffin, that's great. Ovals are not strictly his specialty. For him to qualify ahead of Scott Dixon is great. All
Yeah,
three,
and
all three
that's
Ganassis in the Fast 12.
yeah,
Pretty
that's
impressive.
where Ganassi wants him to be,
Yeah,
and to see him up there, that's gonna help him a lot.
he is meeting his targets at Ganassi. They've got to be happy with him, and he's got to be happy with them. Scott McLaughlin, ninth is not a bad starting position at the
Not
Indy
at all.
500 by any means,
A lot
but
better
he
than
did,
last year,
yeah,
right?
a ton better than last year. He did put in a pretty impressive first performance, though. So,
Yeah,
I know he's got to be a little bit disappointed. Alex kind of speculated something, though, at the press conference, and I think this is interesting. The drivers who went early on in the session who didn't have by the Fast 12, the track was hotter.
right.
Alex had really similar conditions in the Fast 12 than he did to his opening run. A lot of Scott McLaughlin went relatively early. Scott McLaughlin is looking at a much harder run in the Fast 12. So I think that there's, maybe they just weren't as prepared to run in those conditions.
Right.
Either way, the Penskes did look strong this weekend. All we need to look to is David Malukas to see that. Um, and even Joseph Newgarden didn't seem too bothered. So I think that he's fine, but it's got to be a little disappointing when you were maybe going to be challenging for pole, and then all of a sudden,
Right.
like, no, okay, you're ninth. Um, and then
10.
I just want to say briefly about Connor Daly. This guy should. It's a source of frustration for me that this guy doesn't have a full-time seat
Yeah. Yeah. And when you think about that he was let go
from
and the guy who,
JHR,
yeah,
and
and
the guy they kept just bombed. I like Stingray. He is a
yeah,
great guy. He
good
is
human
so
being.
kind. His charities are about animal care and dogs. I work with dogs. I like everything about Stingray Rob except the way he drives his car.
Yeah.
And I think for Connor to put in the performance he did and see what Stingray did must be maybe he feels a little bit of vindication, but also he must be frustrated knowing that
Right.
he wants that full-time drive and he doesn't have it, and this guy does at the team that let him go.
Yeah. I mean, look, he was more than 2 miles an hour slower than the next slowest car. So he's not even in the ballpark
No.
on this. And you can't look at the car. I mean, a little bit. Roman was faster, but 24th. But when he came to the bullpen afterwards, and I was down there, he didn't want to talk to anybody. Clearly, he had to talk to local media,
Mhm.
TV. But he walked right past the rest of the media. He wasn't going to talk to anybody. He didn't want to answer questions, and I get it. But he's clearly lost, right? He has no confidence. The way he drove that car, he had no confidence either. I'm not sure if it was in the car or in himself, but either way, it, that becomes not just a problem that he's taking up a seat that another driver with confidence, Connor Daly, could drive and maybe put in a better performance, it could be dangerous,
Yeah.
right? If you don't feel comfortable, that's a recipe for disaster for a
Yeah.
race driver.
You're theoretically putting every other driver on the grid in danger there because
So
if you're not confident,
yeah, you make
you're going to
mistakes, and
make mistakes.
if you make a mistake at 225 miles an hour, running at race pace, those the results of that could be disastrous.
And
So
you said we can't compare cars and we can and we can't. You're right. So let's just look at in the all car qualifying session, Rinus VK, his teammate, driving
oh yeah,
pretty much the same equipment. His speed came in at a 231.59, and Stingray was a 226.57.
right. Yeah, I don't know
That's
why I said, sorry, I misspoke. I don't know why I said Roman Grosjean, but that's okay. He's DCR.
it's yeah, wait, you're fine.
So,
It's just not acceptable for an IndyCar driver to be he every lap was a mile and a half slower, 2 miles per hour slower than the lap before. You're right. It's clear that there's something. I don't know if you're right. I don't know if it's confidence in the car or confidence in himself, but it feels like he's definitely not
yeah,
there.
yep, yep.
Um,
Okay, so let's go on to row four and Scott Dixon, Renus VK, and Takuma.
Yep. And here we would have had Kaio Scott Renus had it not been for their
Right.
rule violation. But yeah, I don't think Scott is going to be thrilled with 10th by any
No.
means, but I also think he's the right guy to be moving up, and the Ganassi car looks good. So
Yeah.
every
You can't.
time I think I'm going to count Scott Dixon out, he shows up and shows me why I shouldn't. So I'm happy with him there. He's probably fine. Not
Yeah.
ideal, but not terrible. This is a great position for Renus VK, though.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, as we talked about, his teammate couldn't, you know, couldn't get up to speed. So what he found and how he did it, and Renus was ecstatic, when
Correct me
talking
if
to
I'm
him.
wrong. This may have been 2 years ago, but I believe it was last year that Renus was fighting for that final spot on bump day.
I I can't remember. So
It could have been 2 years ago, but I think it was
yeah.
last year where Renus and Jacob Abel were shooting back and forth. What a great
Yeah.
upturn for him. This all the drivers talk about Indy. I think it was Newgarden who said Indianapolis is a fickle place.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have the speed and sometimes you just don't. And how
And it can
great for
change
Renus to
from
be
run
on
to
the good
run.
end. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. How
Yeah.
great for Renus to be on the happy end after being on the very, very sticky end last year.
And
Um,
I think we were surprised by Takuma and just, not making the fast 12. Uh,
he ran 29th though.
yeah, yeah, his position was not good.
I
But
would imagine he would have made the Fast 12 had he been able to run earlier, given that he was on the very outside of
oh,
the Fast 12.
yeah, yeah,
So,
we're talking hundredths of a mile an hour
mhm.
difference. So it's not like he wasn't fast, but he wasn't where we thought he would be, certainly. And overall, RLL had a what I would call a bad day.
Yeah. And coming off of so much great momentum over the last couple of races and
Right.
during practices, where Takuma was just looking so strong and Graham was looking great as well.
Yeah, Graham was, you know, baffled
Yeah.
after qualifying.
Yeah. So it is a little surprising to see Takuma back there. But Takuma, again, we say any driver can win the Indy 500, and that's not strictly true. What we really mean is any driver in the right car, the right
Right.
driver in the right car can win from any position.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
Takuma at 12th, he's still more than halfway up.
Yep.
I think as long as the issues that he had were caused by the
Wind.
conditions,
Yeah.
then I
Wind,
think
heat. Yeah.
he's going to be fine starting 12.
Yeah.
Next row, Ed Carpenter, Elio Castroneves, and Christian Rasmussen. I want
Yeah.
to say about Elio, by the way, I was not watching IndyCar when he was driving. I know him as a driver. I've
Right.
watched a lot of clips from him making passes, winning races, but I didn't know him as a personality.
Yeah.
And he is so happy and charming and so much fun to talk to. I completely understand on a new level now why he is such a superstar and everybody loves him so much.
Yeah. And I think that's 14th. Well, he qualified 15th, but 14th is a really good position for him. Again, if that Meyer Shank car is as fast as we think it is, who knows, right? I
Yeah.
mean, the luck falls the right way. Christian Rasmussen, on the other hand, was very disappointed with his run, and it was interesting to talk to him about moving forward on Indy. And I asked him, I said, last time we saw you on in Milwaukee, you kind of made a few passes and did some things. He said, "Yeah, I don't think I'm passing anyone on the outside at Indy."
Yeah, he said, I don't think I'm going to the High Line.
Yeah.
Um, but we can't. Christian Rasmussen, not that great drive in Milwaukee that we still talk about that we loved.
Well,
But also
and he had a great drive
he
at
had a great drive
Phoenix.
at Phoenix,
Yeah.
and it was again the racing gods chose him that day for the bad luck. But he's capable of a pretty great performance here. We know from Rossi that the car is, you know,
Yeah. It's
doing good car stuff. And Ed is up there as well. He's in a he's in a car that put three cars in the top in he's in a team that put three cars in the top 15.
right.
So
Right.
I think he again is in a
Yeah.
decent position. I would be really surprised if he winds up winning this race.
Right. But I could
Especially
see
given the way he drives. It's scary.
yeah, I could see any of the three ECR drivers finishing in the top three.
Yeah, definitely. Um
But and I could
movie
also see them not,
yeah.
but they have the potential.
Yeah. Um,
So
Rossi said limitless potential for this team at the press conference. He thinks they have everything they need. They just need to put it into place. Next row. This is so funny. We have Scots next to each other, and we've got Marcus Armstrong, Marcus Ericsson, and then
yeah,
Christian Lundgaard. Again with Christian, where's McLaren? What's going on?
yeah,
I know ovals are not really his thing, but
yeah, yeah. Eric,
that's not a good enough starting position for him and
yeah,
for that
and
team.
well, and let's talk about Andretti here now.
Oh, because we've
Because
got Marcus Ericsson. We've got our first Andretti driver
first Andretti driver,
at
17th on the grid.
17th.
This is, they haven't been quick even in open practices in race trim. I don't think Andretti's been top five throughout the month, so they've been struggling to find speed.
What's fascinating to me is that, and this more from Kyle Kirkwood, I would say, there's still a lot of confidence being projected.
Yeah,
Kyle said, I know it doesn't look like it, but I feel good about my run. That's a he and all three of the Andretti drivers also mentioned that they felt better in their car before they added the boost on Fast Friday.
right, right.
Marcus said he's looking forward to losing that boost and going back to a point where he felt better about things.
Yeah,
So
the
it's interesting that they're still projecting that kind of confidence. Preseason, Andretti was doing this whole like we're 9 out of 10. We're right there with Chip Ganassi. Like,
right.
just you wait. We're the team that's going to bring it to them. I wonder if maybe some of this is still part of that. This is what their PR department has kind of told them to stress. And how much of it is genuine. Hey, I do still feel good about the balance of the car and how it feels. And I know I can move up here. So I'm
Yeah.
not super concerned. I don't know.
I mean,
But
they were inconsistent before the boost was added. Not bad, but not no no one was running the fastest
yeah,
times and that. So um let's see how the race shakes out. Obviously, Kyle is a very confident person, but in this row, looking at Ericsson, um, you know, it this is where you start to get wonder whether people have what it takes to move up.
yeah.
right? Again, as we said, right driver, right car can win from anywhere on the grid. I don't know if any of these cars are
Are the
that,
right car.
right?
They were also more confident, all three of them, about their race trim than their quali trim.
Right.
So I think we're going to learn quite a bit in practices early on with
Yeah,
Andretti, but I am going into it kind of skeptical.
right.
I,
Right.
I don't know that they are going to be able to improve the way they need to put themselves in a winning position for this
Right.
race.
So
Speaking
let's
of
move.
Andretti, next row we've got Will Power,
Right.
followed by Nolan Siegel and Louis Foster. We've talked about RLL already on this podcast, so that's just kind of the thing. I'm surprised to see RLL this far down, all three of them.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
uh,
Again, it was a team that seemed to be trending up. Not a great day for them, but let's just see where they run in practice because they did run strong in race trim.
Yep. And then
Right.
the one thing I'll say about Nolan is that while 20th is not a good starting position for him, in particular with the, kind of demands we know the team has put on him in terms of how he needs to finish the season. But one little positive glimmer you can say is that he did qualify within two positions of Christian Lundgaard, who just
Right.
won a race. So
And he qualified ahead of Ryan Hunter-Reay, who has all that experience at Indy.
yeah,
So it's not like he's not competitive with his teammates, and that's always your first benchmark,
yeah, I think that
right?
Nolan, it's so funny to say like showing improvement starting 20th, but I do think that that is a small sign of improvement.
Yeah,
And I'm happy to see it. Next row, Ryan Hunter-Ray,
right.
Joseph Newgarden, and Romain Grosjean.
Yeah.
Newgarden's the guy we need to talk about here. Obviously, real surprise to see him down there. Um,
But you talk
I
about a guy with confidence after qualifying.
right guy, right car. He can win from there.
Yeah. He
You
almost
asked
won from the
him.
back row last year.
Yep.
So,
You
um,
asked him, you asked him about that. You said, are you kind of ready to do what you did last year and move up again? He gave that little Joseph Newgarden smirk. And then like, oh yeah, it's just gonna be patience and
yeah,
we'll post that video. It is very funny. The Newgarden smirk is something I'm becoming rapidly familiar with. He's just in the best way, a little bit smug.
yeah. So
Um,
he's one you're going to want to watch during the race because he has to move up, and watching Joseph set people up and make the passes is as good as racing gets.
It's fun. Now,
Yeah.
the danger starting from the back and something you ran into last year when you have to make that many passes, you expose yourself to more risk.
Yep.
You might wind up getting scooped up in an incident somewhere because you're behind so many people. So
Right.
that is going to be a concern for him. But I would say if Joseph Newgarden doesn't finish in the top 8, 10, it's because he had an incident. So him
Right.
starting from back there is just an opportunity for us to see more passing.
Yeah. Then we go
Um,
to the next row, which is Roman, Kyle, and Catherine Legg.
yeah. No, it's Kyle, Catherine Legg, Mick Schumacher.
Oh, I'm
Roman
sorry.
ends that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But either way, Catherine Legg's who we want to talk about here because we've already touched on Kyle and Mick a little bit. I'm really excited to see her. She was not happy with her car all week, not at all on Fast Friday. It seemed like maybe toward the end of the day, she started to get it under herself a little bit. So to see her qualify ahead of as many people as she did, and look, what I'm looking for from Catherine is a checkered flag. I don't
Yeah.
care. I don't care what position she finishes in. I want her to finish the race safely and get on that plane and get some good nap in before she has to go drive
Nap and fluids.
600 miles. Yeah, nap and hydration so that she can complete the double.
I I
For the
think
second driver in history to complete the double to be a woman would just be like, yeah, ladies.
that
I'd
would
be
be
so excited.
that would be super cool. The other thing I think about Catherine and her position there is in the morning practice, she went out and turned a 231 in morning practice. So in good conditions, when
Hmm.
the wind was down, she was fast.
Yep.
So and for someone
And
who's,
she qualified 33rd. She had the worst qualifying position, the
yeah,
very worst.
she drew 30. Yeah.
Yeah.
Her qualification position was the last position. She had the absolute worst position. The wind was unbelievable. You're talking about someone who's back at the Brickyard for the first time in 2 years, so
Hmm.
still maybe knocking off a little rust. I
Hmm.
think 27, you know, her position in 26 is a perfectly reasonable position for her. And, you know, she talked about starting next to, Kirkwood and behind Joseph and, having some people to run with.
Yep, absolutely. And I love that's I think what I love about Catherine so much is that she wants to jump in and race anybody she can. And while in IndyCar, she doesn't often get the car to put her up with those guys who she really wants to race with. That's what she's there for. She's there to race guys like Kyle and Joseph.
Yeah.
And that's super, super fun. I'm excited to see her start nearby them. Next row, Graham Rahal, Dennis Hauger, Jacob Abel. Great for Jacob Abel to. I know everybody
Yeah.
was going to qualify for the race, but after being bumped last year, I'm so happy that he's going to be able to. And he was so gracious about being bumped. And the thing too is that it must have been frustrating for him after the Penske attenuator thing was found to
Right.
know that. And look, if the attenuator had not been altered, I think that Joseph and
Yeah.
Will still would have he still would have been in a position for bumping, but there must be a little extra frustration not making the race, knowing that
Yeah.
two, possibly three, because nobody looked at Scott's car because it was totaled. The two, possibly three drivers whose team owner owns the track
Yeah.
um, maybe did something illegal and still got to race and he didn't. So I'm really happy to see him there.
Yeah.
Um, and
Dennis
then,
Dennis Hauger may be hoping for a little more out of him than he delivered, and certainly Graham was really disappointed, just like shocked at
yeah,
where the speed went when we talked
yeah,
to him.
he said, I don't know. We asked him directly where did the speed go, and he said, honestly, I have no idea. It was here in practice, and now it's not.
Yep. So
It,
he's got a lot of work to do.
yeah, he sure does.
I think
And
a
then
good result for him in the race would be top 10 now.
yeah, and he's got a lot of work to get there.
Yeah. And then we go to the last row, all of which we've talked about: Stingray Robb, Kyle Collette, and Jack Harvey. So, it's shaping up to be an interesting race. A lot of stories up and down the grid, a few people out of position, which should make for some exciting, not just on track racing, but strategy calls when it comes to pit stops.
Hmm.
So I think we're setting up for a great race next Sunday.
Yep, I am so excited to get back to the track for Carb Day. We will be there early Friday morning, covering all of the practice action and, of course, one of my favorite events, the Oscar Mayer Weenie 500.
I think we need to live stream that one.
I would love to,
All
guys.
right, let's see if we can figure out how to do that, and we'll let you know ahead of time if we're going to live stream the Weenie 500 for you, so you
It's
can tune in on Facebook or YouTube and watch us.
it's just the greatest. I love
Yeah.
it so much. And then, of course, we'll be there for the remainder of the weekend in the race as well. Can't wait to bring you all of that action and insight from the drivers themselves. Please go ahead and keep following us on social media. We've got a ton of clips from this weekend that we plan to post. I am Fast Car Kaz. He is Harvey_drives, and we are Rides and Drives Team Radio. So go find us on whatever platform you prefer, and you'll be able to get some extra little inside bits that we were able to pick up this weekend.
Yeah. So for Rides and Drives Team Radio, I'm Harvey, she's Kaz, and we're out.
Drive safe, everybody.